Salam and peace. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. We're always there on Galaxy 19 satellite, covering the whole United States of America, Canada, and Mexico. We always stream on Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and we're there on muslimnetwork.tv on our own website, that is. Well, people are voting. It seems almost 40 million people have already voted. And tonight is the final debate between President Trump and Vice President Biden. It seems a whole lot of people will be tuning in to make up their mind, or people are already looking for a repeat match. But this time, moderator will have probably a mute button. I don't know how fair they will be in using that. It will be rather difficult to use that mute button. But the economy is a major challenge. Millions of people are looking for food right now. Just in New York, 1.5 million people are approaching food banks and food pantries and soup kitchen. And they are not the traditional homeless people or who have mental health issues on the streets, but these people are coming in fancy cars. And miles-long lines are being formed across the country. So what is happening and how economy will be? We have, Vice President Biden saying he will build back economy or whatever, build back better. How you build back, I don't know, but we'll talk about it. And President Trump still wants to make America great. So to discuss all of that with us is a guest who served President Reagan as Assistant Secretary of Treasury for Economic Policy. He's also a former associate editor of the Wall Street Journal. Please welcome Paul Craig Roberts. Welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Well, thank you.
All right. Paul Roberts is chairman of the Institute for Policy Economy. So tell me, Paul, that if you're the president of the United States, I know for some reason you're not on the ballot. I don't know who is on the ballot for you, but if you are the president of the United States, what type of economy would you like to have?
I'd like to have the type of economy the United States had in the 1950s and 1960s. An economy where the capital stayed at home and employed the domestic labor force instead of moving its operations abroad and employing foreigners to produce the goods that they sell to Americans. That's the kind of economy I would like to have.
So you would like to have a, Rust Belt restored. I live in Rust Belt, where a steel mill is just a few miles away, which is resting in the suburb of Chicago. So you like us to go from the basic industrial change as compared to what economy we have, which is more tech-based and service economy, and for consumer goods, we'll look for people who can sell us cheap.
Well, I would put it somewhat differently, Eamon. The economy we have today is an offshored economy, where American manufacturers have moved their plant and equipment to Asia. And they employ Asian workers to produce products that they bring back to sell to the Americans that they left and deserted when they moved their factories out of the country. So a global economy is death for every economy, especially for first world economies, because it destroys the ladders of upward mobility and it destroys the middle class. It destroys the tax base of state, local, and federal governments, and it destroys the pension systems that these governments are obligated to. So the global economy and the neoliberal economists who glorified it essentially are the wreckers of the first world. And the only way you can restore that economy would be to force corporations to come back home and employ the Americans that they abandoned.
Why those industries left America to begin with? And so you idolize the 50s and the 60s economy. So I'm assuming you date these people living on in the 70s, right?
They left for cheap labor. And the offshoring really did not begin in a significant way until the collapse of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, due to the hardline members of the Communist Party placing President Gorbachev under house arrest, that brought on the collapse of the Soviet system. When that happened, it caused the socialists in India and the communists in China to rethink their economic policy, because with the Soviet Union having collapsed and the United States seeming to be so successful, they ceased their opposition to opening their economies to foreign capital, and they allowed the inflow of foreign capital. And the large transnational corporations saw the opportunity to greatly increase their profits and share prices by dropping their labor cost, and also other costs such as regulatory costs, because the Chinese, Indians, and elsewhere in Asia did not have the same strict regulatory policies in place, such as those that were designed to protect the environment. So they moved for cheap labor. And this is contrary to the theory of free trade. In free trade, your capital is supposed to stay in your own country and find its most productive use. And with those products, trade for the products of other countries that are doing the same thing. So what was described as free trade was actually the pursuit of absolute advantage. It is a form of plunder. And the whole first world is suffering from this. And also many countries in the third world, because it has the tendency, that is globalism, to convert self-sufficient economies into exporters of a single commodity. And so the local inhabitants of a country get displaced by giant corporations who monopolize the land to produce a commodity for export. So overall, probably along with the digital revolution, globalism is the worst thing that ever happened to the human race.
Well, two things there. First, let me understand. So capital, in capitalism, industrialists is free to make decision what they think is suitable for them, and they create profit, and that profits is theirs because they earn it. So what type of economy will it be when you put a substantial limitation on the industrialist or manufacturer? Don't you think it will be like a state control economy?
No. What we have now is a transnational controlled economy where the government is controlled by powerful private interests, such as the global corporations, the giant pharmaceutical companies, the giant agricultural companies, the military security complex. These are who control.
But aren't all of them based in the United States?
They are registered as American corporations, but the operations of the manufacturing companies, or most of them, are abroad. You know, Apple produces its products in China and brings them back here to sell to Americans. But the Americans don't have the income from the jobs of producing those products. Those incomes are in China. This is the difference. You see.
So what type of laws will be required to change that? And will those laws will change the actual nature of capitalism?
No, it won't change the nature of capitalism. Free trade, as defined by Adam Smith, requires the capital of a country to stay at home and find its most productive use at home. It produces goods at home with its own domestic labor, and then it uses those goods to trade for goods of other countries who are doing the same thing. Adam Smith makes it clear that if companies move their capital abroad, it's no longer free trade. They're not obeying the principle of comparative advantage. They are pursuing absolute advantage, that they have, in effect, betrayed their country and using their capital abroad for the benefit of other countries in order to maximize their profits from cheap labor. So it has nothing to do with laws. It just has to do with greed. Greed became the principal driving factor in capitalism. And the way you would bring them back, you wouldn't need laws. You would just change the way you tax. You would simply tell the corporation that if you produce for the American market at home, you get a low tax rate. But if you produce for the American market abroad, you get a high tax rate. And you use the tax rate to take away the advantage of the low labor cost. Now, capital can still leave the country. If it wants to go to China and produce in China for Chinese sales, that's fine.
But if they try to bring the profit back to the US, China will have a problem. So the economic nationalism that everyone insists on their capital to be in their country is going to be good for the trade?
Eamon, let me be very clear for you. What offshoring production does is it prevents Americans to whom the corporation is selling products from having income associated with the production of those products. So when the jobs leave Chicago or Detroit and they go to Shanghai, the American labor is displaced. The Chinese labor then produce those products using American technology, American capital, American business know-how. And then those products come back into the United States to be sold to Americans who no longer have the jobs associated with the income streams that the production of those products produces. And therefore, you see the aggregate demand inside the United States falls, the rate of increase in income falls, indeed, the GDP falls. So it's a way of impoverishing your home market. Eventually, the Americans have no income streams with which to purchase the goods that are made offshore. Another fact, when these goods come back into the country from China, for example, they come in as imports, and so they widen the trade deficit. So it is extremely harmful and dangerous policy. It benefits, of course, the corporate executives and the shareholders, because the corporate executives, their pay is dependent on raising the share price. And when you drive up profits with lower labor costs, you raise the share price. So this explains the huge income and wealth accumulation at the top in the United States. It used to be the United States had a reasonable income distribution. Now, all gains in income and wealth go to the top 1% or less. So that what was once a reasonable distribution of income is highly skewed.
So this polarization, you connect directly this polarization of income, richer becoming rich, poorer becoming poor, middle class disappearing, you directly connect it with the free capital choosing labor throughout the world instead of encouraging production in their own country.
That's right. And it makes no sense when at the same time, the United States is accepting mass immigration of people of Hispanics, relocation of many Muslims that the American military has been bombing and invading and turning into refugees and displaced persons. And so at the same time that you drive out employers by moving the capital to China or India, you're bringing in an inflow of people. So what becomes of them? So here you have a situation where the pressure on all wages is extreme.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Professor Paul Roberts. We'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Adam. You remember me? I appeared in so many episodes that Sound Vision has put on the market. No matter what. Hey, what's happening? Hey, oh, sorry. Lockdown is what it is. Well, continuing here. In this lockdown, Sound Vision never stops thinking about you, the viewer. We'll have to get back into production again, online and inline. Everybody in their own space, even me. Although I'm stuck with Lanisa.
Salam! Salam! Salam!
I know, you were shocked too. Well, let me continue. This is what I was going to say. Salam! 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 Cut! 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 Finally, I get my own screen time again. Thank God. And so we invested in new equipment to bring you even better production with new songs and new singers and animations. Well, here are a few clips. And Sound Vision has brought all this into your home, making Islamic values and teachings easy. And if you know me, Adam, a multi-talented actor, well, sometimes I'm an actor and the reporter and the... Oh, that's enough. Let's move on to the next section. Well, you can watch these new episodes on our new app at www.adamsworldapp.com. We have previews happening every day on Muslim Network TV. Sound Vision has been serving generations, moving and changing with the times. We are all faithfully connected. That is a huge blessing. Your donation helps keep these programs available now and into the future. We take this job of helping tomorrow's Muslims today seriously, and you should too. Today, we need your help. Children absorb and learn from everything they encounter. Make that wholesome, positive, grounded in our faith. Together, we can accomplish our goal of raising better Muslims, better neighbors, and better citizens. Please donate generously. It's an investment in our future. But to finish, let me tell you, there are new scripts of my new mission. And it is something that I enjoy talking about. My new mission is space. Houston, we do not have a problem. Salam, see you soon. Me too.
Tell us, what is this economy which Vice President Biden is promising by Build Back Better? It has 3 Bs. What does that it means?
Doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything.
Look, presidents don't control the economy, and as Trump has learned, you can't go against the establishment.
Okay, we'll talk about establishment in a minute, but have you read what he says? So does it make any sense for you?
That makes no sense. You see, the situation in the United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, not only have they suffered from the offshoring of jobs, but they have suffered from the lockdowns, which have destroyed many smaller businesses and which have forced people to learn to work from home, which is destroying the market for office buildings, shopping centers.
Oh, you tell me. My office building, it's a block long, included Hilton in there. It's all locked down and it is in the bankruptcy court.
That's right.
So did Trump do anything good for the economy? How would you grade his performance?
He tried, but he tried. Trump was for bringing the jobs home. So he understood the problem. When you had a workforce making $25, $30 an hour, and then all of a sudden their jobs are gone, they have to go to work for Walmart for $10 an hour. They can't pay their home mortgage. They can't pay their car payment. They can't service their credit card debt. they have to take 2 or 3 part-time jobs to try to make enough money just to service their debt. So he spoke to these people and he appealed to them and he said he'd bring the jobs back. But it was sidetracked into things like NAFTA. He got into a trade war with China. These are not the solutions. But there was no one there to help him. You see, Trump's strategic mistake was he challenged the establishment, but he did not appoint non-establishment members of his government. So there's no one to help him. And there's no one to give him good advice. And so he has spent 4 years fighting off accusations, Russiagate, Impeachgate, and now they're blaming COVID on him. So what could he do, you see?
But he promised infrastructure, the investment, but the only infrastructure is the wall which he has built or about to be built. Now, Biden is also promising infrastructure investment. Isn't infrastructure very critical for our economy?
Well, the American infrastructure is fairly run down.
So both of them wanted to do it. Trump didn't do it. Do you have any expectation that Biden will do it?
Well, you know, it's not just up to the president. There's the House, there's the Senate. There are a whole number of interest groups. And then when you are bleeding red ink because of your trade deficit, because of all your offshore production, which comes back into the country as an import, when you're bleeding red ink because of the shutdowns of COVID, the lost revenues from offshoring, and people then say, well, we really can't afford it. There's not any money. And so that becomes an excuse. And if you're under constant attack, Trump has been under attack every day.
Well, every day in the middle of night, he sends out that tweet.
So if you're under attack every day, it's
so he
hard.
keeps the world talking about what he is talking. So I don't know. Don't you think he is part to blame himself?
I think he's to blame for not realizing that the establishment is stronger than the president, and that you can't take them on without a well-organized movement and without committed people to appoint to public office. He just assumed the president was a boss and that everybody would follow their orders. But the establishment is the boss.
Paul Roberts, you have been the establishment. You were Assistant Secretary of Treasury. You were sitting on planning on the trillions of dollars. From your perspective, what is establishment?
What is the establishment?
Yeah.
It's the powerful private interests.
So the same corporations who have taken labor to China are the one which you're calling establishment?
They're part of it. They're part of it. They're the ones who provide the campaign contributions that elect the senators, the representatives.
This year, America has spent $10 billion on federal elections.
Right, but the money comes from powerful private interest groups. So they expect the senators, the representatives, and the president to represent them.
So you would oppose the Citizens United thing?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I don't think there should be any money allowed in politics because it's just the way private interests can buy the government. And what Citizens United did, it just gave court approval to the purchase of the government by private interest groups.
Okay, going back to the establishment. So corporations, mega corporations are a part of it who can fund politics and things like that. Who else is part of establishment?
The military security complex.
Okay, who is military? I mean, those are corporations, right? Plus military.
It's public, it's private. It's the Pentagon. It's all the private defense contractors. And they're private in a very curious way. They're privately owned, but their only customers are public. They serve the government, or the government serves them by always placing orders and more orders and so forth.
So President Trump being the, a billionaire, although there are a lot of holes about that claim now, him being a billionaire, how is he different from those corporations? I mean, he has businesses all over the world. Of course, he's in different type of business. Instead of trader, he builds buildings and all that. So why do you think he's not part of the establishment?
Well, if he was part of the establishment, why would they spend 4 years trying to destroy him?
Why they spent so much time bringing him to power?
Well, they didn't.
They didn't?
No, they were totally opposed
So
to him.
it means that establishment is not powerful enough to determine a presidential election?
It was not.
Hmm.
But the establishment learned. And what every future possible presidential candidate has learned is that if you go against the establishment, they will do their best to ruin your life. So Trump, for 4 years, has done nothing but try to fend off attacks. You know, they tried to frame him up with Russiagate. They tried to frame him up with the Peachgate. They're always after him. There's always something. Now they've got it positioned so that if he actually wins the election, they're going to claim he didn't win it. He stole it.
Well, but don't you think he's the one who is claiming that if I don't win, it's not fair?
I would be very careful how I read the media and how much of it I believed, because they're part of the problem. Certainly, there's no one in the print, TV, NPR, radio media that has any love or respect for Trump. They've been working 24/7 for 4 years to get rid of him. So now you ask about him being a billionaire, but you see, he is a billionaire in in buildings, real estate, entertainment. This isn't clout. This isn't the military security complex. This isn't the huge global corporations, the tech corporations. This isn't the pharmaceutical industry that controls the medical profession. This is not agribusiness. It's not a group that has massive clout in Washington, powerful lobbyists. It's not a main supplier of campaign.
But the hotel industry is a huge industry with their lobbyists in Washington, D.C. Now it is suffering, but hotel industry is a big industry. Tourism industry is a huge industry in our country. Although they are not doing any manufacturing, but if you are staying in a hotel, all the towels are made in India or all the supplies are coming from China. So their supply chain of all the products being used over there are from China, and staff in President Trump's own hotels and casinos were coming from Mexico.
I'm sure.
So in that way, it is not a small industry. That's what I'm trying to.
No, it's small. It's very small in terms of power.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
So
The military security complex has an annual budget from the taxpayers of $1,000 billion. This gives enormous power. It's got, it has military bases, defense industries in every state.
so you would.
It has the ability to create enemies. We have big enemies. We have Russia, we have China, we have Iran. These enemies are essential.
You tell me all Muslims were enemy, still are probably. 7 Muslim countries have been bombed so far.
Yeah.
And according to research, several million people have been killed. But do you think Trump in any way, who has increased the defense funding, although he has been accused of not respecting late Senator McCain, but he has increased the budget, and he has appointed the Secretary of Defense, which you think is part of the establishment.
Yes, of course he is.
So it means,
look, if you're not a member of establishment, you're not going to get confirmed by the Senate.
Okay.
All right. That's a simple fact.
So do you think that all the confirmation which Senate has been doing during President Trump, all those people are part of the establishment, and President Trump didn't get anybody of his choice?
Yeah. That's right.
That's extraordinary. You're watching Muslim Network.
There's nothing extraordinary about it. It's the way it works.
Okay, so let's talk about it a little more. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. You're watching Muslim Network TV, and with me is Professor Paul Roberts, who has served as Assistant Secretary in the Treasury and claims to be part of establishment, who is now anti-establishment. We will talk more as we come back.
My wife, she's a professor at the University of Cincinnati, who's Catholic, and by her watching and listening to our 3-year-old son watch Adam's World, she ended up taking Kalima Shahada. She embraced Islam because she learned so much about Islam and the other prophets. It really affected our life in a great way, and because of Sound Vision and Adam's World, we're Muslims.
I took my Shahada 15 years ago, and I actually am from a rural part of Ohio. And so I found the catalog for Sound Vision, and I ordered the tapes and the CDs and the books, and I used those, and especially for my little daughter, that's how we basically learned our Islam, and Islam entered our hearts through the wonderful works of Sound Vision.
Okay, assalamu alaikum, brother. I just want you to know that I love the Sound Vision website, that a lot of times when I'm looking for information, especially as it relates to homelessness, domestic violence, and women issues, I go to that website, and then I see what you've written, and then I copy and paste it and spread the word, because the wisdom is there. So I can't do any better than what Sound Vision has already done.
Sound Vision is our survival guide. It is the organization that provides skills for Muslims how to survive and thrive in this community here in the U.S.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Anam, I'm in 11th grade, and I grew up with Adam's World, and what it taught me was unity, respect, and love for the Muslim Ummah.
Adam's World is the greatest show ever made. Take me to the Kaaba, man. I love that puppet.
Assalamu alaikum!
Open up your eyes.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe, and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah. Let's explore.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. Paul Roberts, so you're saying that no matter who gets elected, do you think that Trump and what is his name, Bernie Sanders, both were anti-establishment?
Trump clearly is, and Bernie Sanders, yes, he qualifies as anti-establishment, but in a different way. Yes, he does. Look, Eamon, consider this. Donald Trump is the first American president in how many presidents that has not started a war? He hasn't bombed somebody. His intent was to normalize relations with Russia. So the CIA and the FBI created Russiagate to stop him from doing that. He says over and over and over, the troops are coming out of the Middle East. And the Pentagon never really cooperates with him.
What about all the supplying arms to Saudis who are bombing Yemen and killing what was that guy from Iran by bombing him? And so he has continued. We cannot say that he started a war, but he has continued in some of the areas while withdrawing from Afghanistan, as I think there are only 5,000 or 7,000 troops left there by compromising with Taliban, which Obama also was claiming that he's ending the longest lasting war. And Iraq war, of course, was finished by President Bush, who declared a job done or something like that. So tell me that you call New York Times as anti-white and anti-American paper for a former assistant secretary of the government who has been the associate editor of Wall Street Journal. It's a major statement. Would you have made this a statement 30 years ago?
Well, it wasn't true 30 years ago.
Oh, it was a different New York Times at that time?
No, the New York Times has adopted what they call the 1619 Project.
What is that?
The 1619 Project is a propaganda exercise in which the New York Times says and is committed and sponsors that the United States originated as a white supremacist, racist country and is illegitimate. This is the New York Times 1619 Project.
So New York Times have some editorial in 1619 about it. The 1619, there was no New York Times.
There wasn't any America either, Eamon. But the 1619 Project, what it means is 1619, they say, was the time the first Black slaves appeared in what later, a century and a half or more later, became the United States. They were brought here by some foreign ship who traded them for food or something. And the New York Times says that on this basis, the United States, its roots are in white supremacy, and it is a white racist nation and therefore illegitimate. The New York Times says the United States is an illegitimate country. They have huge numbers of essays, books. They're spreading this in all the public school system, and it's endemic in their newspaper and their reporting.
So is New York Times part of the establishment?
It's a tool. It has no independent power. It's a tool. They use it to propagandize the population, just as they use all the rest of the print and TV media. It speaks with one voice. If you look at the American TV media, with a few, maybe a couple of people in Fox News is different, But even Fox News, if you look at all of the TV media in the United States, other than just purely local stations, you see it speaks with one voice. They have the same explanation for everything. They're controlled explanations. You see, these controlled explanations are enforced on the internet by Twitter, by Facebook, by Google. There are many things that you can't say, even experts. For example, the medical experts who have pointed out that the masks that people are wearing do not prevent the transmission of COVID-19. They're simply taken down. The video conferences of scientific meetings in which they question any aspect of the COVID pandemic are deleted. People such as Professor Chudovsky, who runs global research, an emeritus professor of economics at the University of Ottawa. Global research is a great big website. He's now under attack in Canada by the media as a Russian agent. If you take any exception to any official explanation, they start to close you down.
Since there is no trust on media, as you're saying, doesn't it allow social media to have all sort of conspiracy theories to which the social media bosses are reacting to limit? Don't you think the conspiracy theory aspect also thrives?
No, the explanations are controlled to serve the agendas of the ruling elites.
Okay, so let's
have a different explanation. They don't permit it. There's no public debate.
Okay, so debate is happening. President Trump has been taking different positions, and he's been, him and Fauci has a conflict on issue. But what is that? You call it military security complex as compared to military industrial complex. Is it a very thoughtful, different construct?
Yes, it used to be the military industrial when we had industry.
Okay, so that's what it is.
And before the rise of the power of the covert part of the CIA. You see, President Eisenhower in 1961, I think it was.
He used that term.
He warned the American people in his last public address about the growing power of the military industrial complex. Well, this was more than a half century ago, so you can imagine how powerful it is now. But beginning in the 1950s even, the CIA, the covert part, not the intelligent analyst whose job is to provide information about what other countries are doing, not the intelligence part of it, but the covert operations part that President Truman himself said publicly was a mistake for him to have permitted to come into existence. That part began infiltrating the media in the 1950s. Today, they essentially control the media. And
what is the covert part of CIA? How much is their budget, and does the CIA chairman controls it?
No one knows how much their budget is.
And who controls it?
What?
Who controls it? Does the CIA leadership control the secret part of CIA?
I doubt it. I doubt it.
So there's a lot of room for theories and some fictional novel as well. Are there some fiction around that?
I don't think there's anything fictional about the covert operations of the CIA.
But if nobody knows, it has a room for a lot of imagination, right? That's where fiction comes from.
No, I don't think so. We don't need fiction to see them in operation, and their budget. Look, I was chief economist at one time for the House Budget Committee, and the CIA budget is simply not public knowledge. The senators don't know.
Even you didn't know at the time?
I had the clearances because I had to have clearances because of the weapon systems. I can know all about the weapon systems, but the CIA's budget. And not only that, there's a lot of belief that the covert operations of the CIA, that they have many private companies. Originally, these companies were just shell companies. They were cover operations. But I think they learned that they can actually have real businesses.
Now, tell me, you have a lot of criticism of Secretary of Defense Esper and Secretary of and Attorney General Barr. So while you sound supporting President Trump, his team, two major leaders, you're very extremely critical of. Why?
Look, it may sound like I'm supporting Trump just because I'm trying to tell the truth.
Okay.
And instead of attacking him. But I'm really just trying to tell the truth as I understand it. And I actually have more information about the situation than most people do, just from the nature of my life and career. I don't have an agenda other than to try to tell the truth. Now, I didn't say anything really about Esper that Trump didn't say. Trump himself pointed out that the generals just want war and he can't get them to let him bring the troops home. You know, he said that himself. So we have Esper going around claiming we got to have a 5 or 6% real increase in defense budget, when already the defense budget of the United States is more than twice the size of the combined budgets of Russia and China. So why do we need more? Because it's for the profits of the firms that make up the complex. You see, the military security complex doesn't really want war, it just wants enemies, so it can justify its budget and its power. Okay, now Barr, why did I criticize Barr? Okay, I criticized Barr because what was Russiagate about? It was about an attempted overthrow of the President of the United States. There were all kinds of false charges made. They were made in ways that violated the law. You had the FBI deceiving the FISA court. This is a felony. This is not my opinion. This is just a fact. We have all kinds of evidence in the public record of the FBI working to undermine the president.
So you think Russia did not interfere in any way in our elections?
Now, of course, Russia didn't interfere. How can Russia interfere? Who interferes are the people who finance it.
So now it is being said that Russia and Iran are interfering in US elections. That is, you think, are untrue also?
How can Russia interfere in the election? What can it do?
They're saying that they have these cyber systems in which they created confusing information, which attacking the opponents of President Trump. And Iran, I don't know how they are doing it, but this is what is being said, right? That they create misinformation about the opposition.
They're saying the same thing they said about Russiagate. They're just repeating it. And what do we know? We know it was orchestrated. It was false, and it's false, and it's orchestrated again. How can Russia interfere? Who interferes with the people who finance the elections? Who is that? Israel. The military security complex, Wall Street, the pharmaceutical industry, mining, energy, timber interests. These are the people that interfere in the election. They purchase it. They purchase the candidates. Their money gets the candidates elected. They are the ones who interfere in the election. What can Russia do? Nothing. Oh, all the Americans believe what the Russians tell them, when all the Americans have been convinced that Russia's their enemy, and that we have to have $1 trillion a year spent to defend ourselves against Russia, and that Putin is the new Hitler. Why would Americans believe these people, when they're told Putin is Hitler? So are they going to believe Russia? It's nonsense. It's utter nonsense.
So you mentioned in one of your articles that, which implies or clearly says, I cannot quite judge that President Trump could be defeated through mail-in vote, which is mail-in vote fraud.
Yeah.
Now, what is a mail-in vote fraud? Because I voted through mail, and President Trump also voted through mail. So what is this mail-in vote fraud?
You know, it's explained all over the internet. All sorts of people explained it. Experts have explained it. Democrats who engage in it have explained it. There are many ways it can happen. It would take a whole program just to go through how mail fraud, how mail-in voting can result in fraud. You can just consider something real simple. The Postal Carriers Union is a public sector union. Public sector unions belong to the Democrats. You have something just as simple as they simply won't deliver the votes from red areas.
But
it's very simple. They have found thousands of undelivered, unopened ballots in the trash already. These reports exist. You can find them all over the internet.
Yeah, I have read some of those.
Yeah.
Tell me, do you expect some election-related violence during election or after election?
Unless Trump wins by such a huge margin that they can't challenge it, I expect that his reelection will be challenged and it will be fought with violence.
Yeah. And this is exactly the same thing Democrats are saying. Unless Biden wins with overwhelming numbers, it will be disputed and fought by the right wing.
Yeah,
so,
but what right wing? There's no organized right wing.
Okay, so there seems to be, so what people of faith and people of interfaith and peacemakers should do at this time of high division and opinion differences?
What can they do? You know, after you've had decades of identity politics in which the population is split into hostile groups, in which blacks are taught that whites are the oppressors, women are taught that men are their oppressors, whites are blamed for the inconvenience that everyone else suffers. I mean, what can you do? You don't have a community. You have a system of hostile groups. The population is split against itself.
Well, thank you so much, Paul Roberts, for your time. Truly appreciate it. And thank you, Sherdil Khan and Dr. Abdul Wahid, for producing today's show. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Roku, and MuslimNetwork.tv. Peace. Salam.
Peace.